This video will show you how to modify and change and work with ntfs permissions. Now let me go back to the same folder that we created before, the one called top secret, which I shared as top secret. Now remember that there's two different types of permissions that are applicable to a folder that is in an ntfs partition and that is shared over the network. You have the share folder permissions and you got the ntfs permissions. Now what I would like to do is to do a right click on the folder. Again, go to properties. This time I go to the security tab. The security tab is the one that controls the ntfs permissions. So I click security and then I see the list of default permissions that are available in here. Now if you recall from the lecture, this whole entry that you see right here is the ACL for this particular folder, and each one of these entries with its respective permissions is the ACE. So there's an ACE for authenticated users, there's another one for system, another one for administrator, another one for users. If I wanted to remove any one of these entries that are in here, if I try to remove, for instance, users, and I go to edit and I go to users remove, I get an error message that doesn't allow me to remove those different groups in there. It says that I cannot do this because this object is inheriting permissions from its parents. So this is letting me know that there's inheritance happening here. Now one way in which I could have noticed that there was inheritance in here is by looking at the color of the check marks in the permissions. If they look grayish, that means that the permissions are being inherited. If they look black, it means that they could be changed. It means that they're not inherited. So in this particular case, they're inherited. So I'm going to hit cancel to go back to my original screen. Okay, and again I see the check marks in here in gray. So now I'm going to go to the advanced button here, and under advanced I get to see 4 different tabs, one called permissions, auditing, owner, effective permissions. Now let me just go quickly through this. The permissions allow me to modify the permissions in here. The auditing is something that has to do with checking to see who has done what and when. The owner, right now it says that the owner of this particular file, okay, is Pedro. Okay, and then you do see the effective permissions, the ntfs effective permissions. So let me go back to permissions. In here I'm going to click edit, and when I go to edit, it gives me the option of deselecting the inheritance. So in here, let me move this up. In here I have the option of saying do not inherit. So if I deselect this, I get this error message that says, do you want to copy the inheritance so that you can modify, add, or remove whatever you want to? Do you want to remove all the inheritance? In other words, you get to see the list again but without any entries in the ACLs. Or you made a mistake, you want to get out of here, that will be cancel. So I'm going to select copy. When you select copy, okay, I'm going to click OK. OK to go back to the screen. Now if I wanted to remove users, I could click on users. Sorry, go to edit first, click on users, click remove. Notice that now these are darker, which means that now I can modify the permissions if I wanted to, or I could remove them. So I'm going to remove the group users from here. Okay, and I'm going to remove the authenticated users. And now I'm going to add Pedro as the user that I want to be able to access this particular folder. So I'm going to add, and again the same way as in the previous share folder permissions, I click advanced, I go to find now, I find the user from the list, I click OK, and now I click OK again, and I see the user in here, and the default permissions are the read and execute. If I want to give that person full control, I do that, click apply, click OK, and now I was able to change the permissions in here. Now, one thing to remember regarding the permissions is that if you want to be able to control the access to this folder, this file, over the network, the suggested thing to do is to set the sharing permissions as open as possible. So I'm going to go back to permissions, and I'm going to say that the everyone group should get not just read but full control, and then apply. And now, since this is as wide open as possible, I will be able to then set my restrictions from ntfs. Okay, so from here, whatever permissions I set, those are the ones that are going to be taken. Those are the ones that are going to be the most restrictive.